Pink Cloud Radio 85. And back to the basics of this whole thing. Well, not the basics. What could be the basics? What could be everything in it? What could be nothing in it? I'm here to declare everything, to declare anything, and to be the death king of this whole thing. Because it's come down to a lot of stuff that, what I ended with last time, which is we could stop this, we could, keep on letting culture and people die, or stop it all immediately. We could, sadly there's a lot of that going around, that we have to live in those absolutes, when in fact, the ethical behavior has been broken, and the Oracle is part of the Matrix also. So, to me, like with the Matrix trilogy, it's a good example, because the Matrix cannot tell you who you are. Well, somehow the Oracle said that to Neo. Some of the architects said the mathematical solutions and problem, and made only two ways to go: either save the whole place, or just save Trinity. Then the Merovingian said cause and effect, pushing all actions to happen. Nothing doesn't have a reason, meaning that there is a reason for everything to use against, in fact. So in fact, when our ethical behavior is broken, it can be broken in something that actually is reasonable to most people. Where people believe in, the idea of being called some kind of prophetic vision, to be like what we've grown up with the martyrdom and stuff like that. Well, we've kind of grown on this habit so much that, in fact, maybe someone who is a martyr isn't really a martyr. They're just called that, That person really stood up when they did nothing at all. And I think in our major thought, that's the problem. We kind of assimilate a kind of agreement with something, even if it's not truly the right thing to agree with. We kind of just say, well, it must be right. Because, obviously somebody wouldn't do something just for kicks. Though that may be true, it's not really about within a person doing something for kicks. It's more about what they've done in the first place. So, like, the way I could speak about it is that when I look at the relationship I've had with my past, being that my past, I've had certain things where things happened right away, things had to be done right away, there was an acceptability, there was other times where things just went sour. Is there a definite reason for it? Not really. See, that's the thing about a lot of this stuff. You don't really have to, take in everything. But you have to learn, I think it would be learned, that especially if you don't just allow something to tell it for you. So when, in the Matrix trilogy, for example, when the Oracle said what she said in the first one, and in the second and third, whatever, the major theme was always the same. She never actually got out of, she never actually showed him the truth. She only showed him what she knew. Being in a system, you kind of can only teach what you know. So technically, she wasn't free at all. This wasn't somebody who was free, but being a product of the system you were born in, maybe that's the whole point, is that you learn from people that are in it themselves. And you have to just break from it, through them, through what they tell you. And I think that's one thing I've learned about people that say they have experiences, that they know they have good judgment now, What is good judgment? The judgment being good, or the judgment being in the right place at the right time. That doesn't mean much. You don't have to have good judgment. All you have to do is know what you're doing. Be focused and be concentrated on it. Live in the moment and understand it. Just as much as you would need to understand everything before that. That's why to me with the Oracle, it was like a spoken, sort of signal of like being the one. Being the one. This kind of stuff is just kind of like being the inner self, being the one inside yourself. Well, how do you do that? Well, it's easy, but it's the hardest path, because what Neo did was on his own, pretty much. It was through other people that he did reach it too, but it wasn't about those other people. It was always about what he did. and what he would be doing. So to me, that's where I kind of see I can see where there could be parts where people aren't interested, and maybe that's the whole point, is that, the journey begins in a certain way, it continues, and it ends in a certain way too, and it could be in any shape or form that it could go in any of those directions. So it's not necessarily one thing or another, because if you overdo something, you can overdo it, and if you outlive or try to, put in context what should matter, a lot of times you're using it as a means to your own end. You're not using it for yourself. You're not using it for your own benefit. You're using it just for the benefit of what can be gotten by the end of it. Like, that's what I think a lot of thinking in quantity is, or thinking in a very buggerless, bilious sort of way, where it's just sickening and it's like an illness of continuous, That's how I kind of feel a lot about, like, the superhero movies now. There's a continuous illness of it. It just doesn't feel right anymore. And I think that's why a lot of the stuff that I'm interested in has to do with, the deeper meaning of certain things. That's why, the Matrix trilogy is so much, because you have these characters that are left alive, that are left without any regard to what they're doing, and just keep on doing their thing. You got Oracle saying he's the one, and she's still around. You have the architect pointing out that the mathematical solutions and the problem, using a sort of, using the same kind of paths of like this or that, and that's it. You don't have any other choices. Well, the other choice would have been get rid of the architect himself, because the architect is designing this, which means that if the person who made this happen is gone, then it's not going to happen anymore. The architecture will fall down. Everything will go down. There'll be moments of darkness. That's the whole point of it. Like, a lot of people don't understand that darkness is not always a bad thing. It's not always about evil. It's not always about, something bad coming up. Sometimes darkness is about learning and going and getting up again, and just doing it your own way, being represented by yourself. So, like, even if I bring up the shooting yesterday at the LAX, to me, that really spoke about what territory most people are on nowadays. Most people are on the territory of either accepting the government, trusting everything, or on the other end, not my end, but on the other end, you're upset about other people speaking out because you don't like being in this place where there's hypocrites and there's contradictions. Well, the thing is, you can't escape hypocritical ways and contradictions when our whole country was built on that. It was built on the contradictions and everything. So it's funny, so many people are upset when they saw it from the beginning of our country. When they see it in something that's put up in display, the Constitution that limits and grants the government power. You can't do both. You can't do both without somebody taking advantage of it. People don't just go, well, we'll limit our power on this part. All you do is just separate it, but you don't mess with the flow of it. People can do whatever they want, And it's the whole idea of Caesar. Caesar did the same exact thing when he was in power. That's why in a lot of ways the governments failed back then. It wasn't because there was nothing else left. That was the definite truth of it back then. They lost all their powers because they didn't want to just let go and let people live. And I think it's because it's a test of who we are. This is a whole test right here. This is a test to see if we can be individuals. But the one thing I've learned is I can't be an individual if it takes being that kind of dark person, doing those kind of bloody deeds to people. I can't be that. And I think, when people say survival of the fittest, it's not about survival of the fittest, it's survival of the deadliest. The people who do the most deadly deeds. And it's funny people say it's survival of the fittest. If it was survival of the fittest, you couldn't use guns. You couldn't use a lot of this stuff here. You would just have to use your bare fist and see if you can survive. But people use other means to keep themselves alive. Just to keep that link to immortality or keep going. They'll be the last ones and then the rest will be gotten rid of. It's the funniest thing. So many people want immortality, but at the same time they want to kill off everybody else. And I think that's what I saw with the architect. to a certain extent about what the power is. The power has to come in one way, and that's the only way it's going to come in, and that's it. And we'll just reset it again and do it all over again and see where it goes. And I think in a lot of ways that's the problem. It's like a game. That's the one thing people don't get. This is like a game pretty much. This isn't like the people in power care about us, because if they did, it wouldn't be such a game. It wouldn't be like you have two choices here, Democrat or Republican. You would have more than that. You truly think you're free when you're just being told you only have two voices to speak from? That's not freedom, and that's not what that's where they gain the power, not us, because truly we're letting that limit ourselves, but we're also letting that shut ourselves up. We accept when that happens because it's like, well, we can't really say anything about it. Well, actually we can. There's a lot we can say, and I'm sure you have a lot to say. And if you don't, it's because you've hidden everything and it doesn't matter. But at a certain point, no matter how far you flung it, you're going to get to a point where somebody's going to just say something the right way and it'll all come out. Whether it's about being upset or not, the fact is it'll come out. And I think in a lot of ways, the one thing I learned is that being the kind of person I am, it counts for very little when there's a ton of people that think the complete opposite. Like think in the way of trusting everything and just grabbing that security blanket of the world that they're given instead of creating their own. And instead of waiting for the rest of the world to catch on to it. I know that my beliefs aren't going to be everybody else's, And truly, I don't think it is anybody else's because I act differently with it, And I think that's what I've learned throughout my life about, even through something as simple as movies and shit like that. Even though I hate to say it, it's entertainment, but there's a lot of deeper stuff in some of them. In a lot of them, actually. Probably in most you could find some deep meaning in it. But I wouldn't say all of them are. I bet there's a good majority, the vast majority being built now, are pretty useless. Or defending the opposite side. Or defending the side of people who just say, shut up if you can't change anything and you can't change other people's views. Well, hold on. Why would I want to change other people's views? That's the main problem. If you see people being brainwashed to a certain extent about trusting people, but not trusting other people, just trusting people that are above them, that's a problem. That's hypocritical. If you don't trust those people, if you don't trust people around you, don't trust anybody then. Don't trust the system, don't trust anything. Because that's created by people, created by the same people you don't trust. But yet you trust those people. I think it's hilarious to see that contradiction and hypocriticalness. See, that's why to me it's very easy to stay focused and concentrated, because what you learn is the big hypocrite. And you stop being that. And you stop saying, you know what, I'm not going to be a hypocrite anymore. Fuck this shit. And you don't take it anymore. You don't take anything to be off a limb. Yes, I'll jump off a cliff for my beliefs, but only if it changes everybody else to jump off a cliff for their own beliefs. It doesn't mean much if I'm doing it on my own, We all have to do it, And it's not about, hands out or just making everybody commit suicide or doing this or that, which is what most people would assume jumping off a cliff for your beliefs would mean. But that's what religion does every day. All religions. That's what government does every day. The only difference is we don't say it that way. We see it in a different way. We say, well, man, those people are so tolerant. Actually, they're not. Look how many people they're killing from other religions. They're not that tolerant. They're, in fact, the most intolerant. Somebody who's actually tolerant won't be recognized. Right will be wrong, and wrong will be right. So me being actually tolerant of people, well, you're so wrong with each other. You can't get people with love. You got to get them with war. Well, war is the biggest stamp of anything. And that's why, like the Merovingians, said cause and effect. Pushing all actions to happen. Well, nothing doesn't happen for a reason. Nothing doesn't have a reason. And especially with those kind of marks and keeping that kind of consciousness around of the Merovingian, of the architect, of the oracle. The three things that should have been gone from the Matrix are still there. It's the same thing that we have here. The three things that are so damn important to us should be gone. Religion, science, math, all these things, gone, please. They're just a pleasure dome to keep ourselves aware of things and keep us going in this perpetual cycle of war. Again and again and again. Until pretty much it dies out. I mean, it's not going to die out in the same way you would think. Most likely it'll probably die out with the people, And it'll probably die out with the people who wanted to stop it but didn't do anything, literally, versus, and it could be a versus thing, because to that point, an extent, I'm looking at it in the war perspective, how people consider war. Because at the end of the day, it's going to probably be the fact that all these people who didn't fight the war will eventually have to. The ones that are selling the war all the time through the media, through the big military-industrial complex, through the government, through the CIA, FBI, or anything. All these means to keep a support line to the military, the people that actually just fight for them. Eventually, that military will be gone, And if they're not, there's a certain point where people, even in the military, have a breaking point. And they don't have to take orders. If they feel like it's a wrong thing to do, they could stop and say no. Turn on... Because truly that's what a militia, that's what a government's army is for. It's to take on the government if they do anything bad. That's why we have, they have the right to bear arms, because if a government turns on its people. That was the reasoning behind it, in fact. So it's funny people don't believe that. They believe what they've been told in the last 20 years versus the last 200 versus the last 600 years, 12,000 years of so many empires that fell down because of their own government. They didn't fall down because of other people's governments. They didn't fall down because they had too many wars. Although you could say that was a big influence of it, because they didn't have wars for nothing, obviously, if by the end of it the person in the power over them did it to them, did it to their own people too. They obviously started those wars because they got back to their own people too. They did it for those reasons, and it's entirely proven by them going back on their word to protect their citizens and just attacking their citizens after they had wars with other places. So one thing I've learned about this, and it's so hard to see for many people. I understand that. It's the hardest path to do something good. It is. And it's the hardest path. I won't deny that. But it's better than being that other side, or being those two other sides, as I call it, because one side would tell you, oh, just trust them. The other side would tell you, oh, well, you can't do anything about it, so it's better not think that way. But me, I'll say, well, fuck both of you. I'm going to represent myself. I don't give a fuck if anybody believes me or not. I don't need that kind of security blanket. I don't need people to believe me. If you want to talk about these things, let's talk. If you don't believe me, that's fine. I'm not asking you to believe me. In fact, the one thing is, I don't even believe myself entirely, but I found facts and evidence to back up my claims. That's where I start from. I don't start from the solution. I don't say, well, it could be this, but I need to look back at the evidence. No. I actually start from looking at the evidence, looking at the facts, looking at everything that's given there, and then I go forward and find the problem and solution and go through everything in that order. But most people don't do that. They look at it in the opposite way. They find an answer, then look for the problem. No, you have to find the problem. You have to look at the problem, then find the answer. And that's what I think. Given a choice. Here, this has to do with the Matrix 2. The Matrix also, not the Matrix 2 entirely, but it does technically. All the set in stone ideas pulled out to pull onto choices like the Oracle did in Matrix, Architect in Matrix Reloaded, Ambiguous nature leading from vanity and corruption. All these things are given a choice, supposedly. So we have the all set in stone ideas of being pulled out to pull onto choices, like how it turned out in the first Matrix, where you had the Oracle talking about that. The choices being like, either you're gonna die, or Lawrence Fishburne's character, which I can't remember for some reason. I can't remember his name. Morpheus, yeah. Either you or Morpheus, and that's the stone ideas of being pulled out to pull onto choices. You're being pulled out of something that is imaginary to make just choices again. To make something more darkly, distinctly done. And I think that's the one thing that I saw in the Matrix that really showed that the Oracle is not a free. It's not free. She's a part of the system, and the fact of the matter is, that's the proof of why Neo lost. He always based things off of what the Oracle said. He always based things off of what he learned, rather than what he is. Until the end, when he realized what he is. All that other stuff in the middle of it didn't matter, although it did. But taking it in taking it in is very different from taking it on. Take it in, but don't take it on, because it's not you. It's not a part of you. You can't even understand all of it. It's the same thing when I say, like, I can't trust Mamina with everything of her experiences. I have confidence that it worked for her. I have trust that it worked for her. But I have no trust or confidence that it's going to do the same for me. I never would. It's the same thing with Mom. How I know that feelings, emotions, sensitivities, all the stuff I learned from my mom will never work in the same way as her, because I see the big problem she has, which is patience, feeling guilty. But a lot of her ideas of what a relationship is are not true about relationships, because they're based on these elements of surprise, of intrigue, of the so-called fairy tales that have been created in these few hundred years that have come. That it started actually with just cautionary tales. They weren't about love. They were just about caution. Before the Grimm's brothers rewrote them, there was an original tale that was totally, disturbing, but it was there, and that's pretty amazing that you have that. That's a big avalanche of difference. But most people don't want to look at that way. They want to look at that imagination of the happy ending, the slipper that's found, the bride to be. But that should already be there. That should have to only be there when you have it. Not when you want it or guilt for it or try to pleasure yourself into being patient about it. I think that's why, to me, when you had the oracle and the character, you really had that kind of a semblance to that kind of manufactured view. And to me, that's why the oracle had to go. But still there. I think that sucks, because it proves why the architect was still there. Why you have the architect in Matrix Reloaded and the ambiguous nature leading from vanity and corruption, which is what... the architect is the opposite of the oracle, but at the same time, that's why to me, when I saw the oracle still living, you knew the architect was going to live. And that sucks, because they're total opposites, they're polar opposites, they're needed. Well, what if they both die? Then they're not needed anymore. Then that kind of thinking, that kind of psychology of what we believe is the system, what we believe is the identity of what we have there, will be gone. All we need, the only identity we ever needed as humans, as living things, is ourselves. The identity of all this other stuff was only created to get power and control over us. It wasn't about, we're going to create civilization here. Civilization? What the fuck is that? It's true, it's a good question. What is that? What does that have to do with anything? There have been more failed ways of doing that than any ones that have succeeded. So it's funny when people say, we're going to have a civilization here. You know how many people said that and failed? You know how many peoples have said that and failed? Sometimes because of other peoples invading them and taking their land. There you go. And you have the ambiguous nature leading from vanity and corruption, which is something of what the Merovingian is. The ambiguous nature that leads from that vanity and corruption is very big. And it's not just the Merovingian. I should say it's everybody and everything. Because you have this sort of character of, what is mine is mine. I'll take from you too. That's where it comes from. That's where this ambiguous nature is. If you're ambiguous about things, you can take anything from anyone. If you think ambiguously about things, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm lost. But I don't try to take advantage of other people because of it. And I think that's the one thing nobody else has learned. And possibly the main reason why our power stinks. Our power, everybody's power in the world. Because the governments and everything, they're all ambiguous. So they could do anything the fuck they want. No one can defend the opposite. Because everyone's going to say, well, we don't know how this power will go. We haven't seen a democracy full way through. There's always this timid line of stopping. Of being timorous about it. Of just saying, well, nothing about it. I don't need to say anything because I don't know exactly where it will lead. There's only so much truth to that when you see how it's leading right now. Especially if you don't live in the moment. And that's why, to me, you can't just say, well, we don't know how the future will go. Well, that doesn't matter. The one thing that you have to learn is that, and I think with everyone, is that we can't just look at the world and say, well, as long as it's not happening to us. But see, that's the thing about it. It is happening to us. We're the humans. It's funny that people don't see that. All they see is, that it's not happening to us, but us is them. Us is everything. And it's funny that people will considerately give up the value of their own lifestyle because of what their government sways them toward. Using religion, using politics, using lies, using a ton of different things to get their views out. And I think that's the one thing that I've learned about when you look at vanity and corruption. It's just, it's mine, and I'm going to take what's yours too. If you have that sort of a semblance of character, you can't really build something good out of that. You're not going, well, there's going to be some nice people coming out of this. Nope. Mostly there's going to be people that, given a choice, would not be in the line of the opposite of what they think. Or at least not in the opposite of what they would take in. You know, it's a lot harder to pick the easy path. It's a lot harder to pick the good path. It's mostly because you don't really, substantially you'll never get much. That's why most people have picked the bad side, because at least you get sex, at least you have the options, at least you have this or that, at least you don't have to worry about feelings, emotions. To me, that's why I've been single in the way I am, not because, it's a good choice, Marcello, a good choice to make, it's better to be single, that's what most people would say. I would just say, well, if I end up with somebody, that's great. If I don't, that's great. I can't complain about either. I want to be with somebody, but at the same time, I know I want to be myself with somebody. I'm not going to just make you happy. If me being me doesn't make you happy, then I'm not the right person for you. I'm going to make you happy in the relationship too, but that's only going to come in with what you truly value. If you value the person I am and I value the person you are, there we go. We can build something good from that in caring about each other and loving each other. But if there's no value between us, well then I can't push myself to try to value you. There's no value already, And I think that's the one thing I learned between what those characters meant. I really don't see how they could have lived. I'm talking about in the Matrix with the Oracle and the Architect and the Merovingian. Those characters lived, and all they proved to me was how badly, people keep those things around. Neo should have gotten rid of all of them, and he didn't get rid of any. He left them to live. It's sad because when I look at that, I think about the fact that those are the main problems and issues that we have in this world, and yet he introduces himself to them and lessons to them as if they're going to make a good counterbalance. And I think that's one thing that I've learned, is that you can't balance certain ththings. But it's not about balancing certain things. It's about just giving time to certain people and giving other time to other people. That's it. That's all it takes. It's not about, well, you need to give, you need to have balance between you and, no, it's different though. Like the love I have for my mom versus the love I'd have or have had for a girl when I was with are completely different. I don't need to balance them. I just need to give time to both of them. That's it. If someone's going to use it against me, well, then they don't truly love that I'm doing it. They don't truly love that I'm with them, And I think that's the one thing that I could learn from what I've seen, which is the guilty, the sort of attitude that people just come up with consistently to try to debase you or devalue you. If they say like you're living at home with your mom or something like that, and they try to use it against you, well, you're living with your mom too. Why are you using that against me? Yeah, but it's okay for me to. Got it. Then I gotta go, because to me, that's a big hypocritical, contradictory statement. If you want me to live on my own, you better too. There you go. You gotta show that being on your own is that important. Because if it's not that important, if it's only important on one side of the picture, sorry, I'm not going to be in your picture. You could take that with another person. Another person could be in your family portrait. Thank you very much. I'm not going to be in your family portrait because I think that's an asshole move to be that hypocritical. You have an answer, which means that you already know what you want. So do it for yourself. That's the one thing I've learned. If you have an answer for something, do it for yourself. But if you truly want to get something, and you truly want something with somebody that you really care about, you really want to be with, then you don't have to manage them, you don't have to dictate, you don't have to make a presence of it. You already know that you care and love this person. There you go. You have your answer. No discredit, no kind of devaluation of the kind of person they are, where they are in their lives. Value, as it comes to this. Once something is valued, it comes into our lives over and over. So if not valued, it can be erased, put into a matter of saying it's a lie, even if it's reality. easier for a catcher-in-the-rye attitude to devalue so that things don't come back. Wanted to save kids and all the imagination because didn't want to save himself. I wanted to bring up catcher-in-the-rye for some reason. But value, yeah. Once something is valued, it comes in to our lives over and over. It's true. It does. I value my emotions, feelings, sensitivities, senses, instincts, guts. I'm the death king, and I embrace it, And those things come over and over again. It's something we value, And so if not valued, it can be erased, put into a matter of saying it's a lie, even if it's reality. So on the other end, if something isn't valued, it's a lie, even if it's reality. But to me, I acknowledge those things. I value the fact that somebody grew up with somebody else. Now, I may not acknowledge that right away, but I'm learning to. It's hard to because that's not something I would do to somebody. So I acknowledge the fact that somebody's been in an abusive relationship with their family. Let's say with their mom and dad. Let's say with somebody they've been with. I acknowledge it. Yes, I have not surfacely put it into place and said, you know what, I value that. But I don't really. I only value the fact that I understand. That's as much as I'll go because I'd never do that. And I think within that, karma has slapped me in the face with that shit. Because truly it has. But it doesn't mean much because I would never do the same thing. If you value that so much you want to have it repeated on you, well, you're talking to the wrong guy. And I think that's what I've learned about what I value versus what I don't value. That I can't really say it's a lie. It is reality. And sadly, or maddeningly, because I'm mad about it, but seriously, I can't stop it. And I think that's the one thing that I've learned. If people love misery, they're going to try to get company, too. Other people with it. The one thing that I've learned is you have to stop that yourself. No one else can stop it for you. Especially if it's somebody very close to you. If it's a mom and dad, if it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, if it's somebody that you're with, if it's a kid even. Anything that you've had that have put you into a certain place, a certain whim. You can't really ask them, hey, change. And it's not about them changing really. The fact is, if you need to tell somebody to change, it means you're the one that's changing, you don't like it. Well then, you know that you don't want to be there. If you truly don't want to change, you know that you don't want to be there. And I think that's the one thing that I've learned when somebody says like, when somebody is saying certain things to you about the kind of person you are, or what they value, what they don't value, what they like, what they don't like. Right there, they're kind of proving the kind of, attitude they take towards you. Is how they take those things about you. What they say about it. If they value it, they wouldn't just sit there and make fun of it sarcastically and be irritated by the kind of person you are. They actually would appreciate it. And would say, you know what, I understand why you're doing that. And I think it's like for catcher-in-the-rye attitude, to devalue so that things don't come back. And I think that's what, to me, I can understand why people wouldn't like catcher-in-the-rye. I like catcher-in-the-rye, but I don't like it because of the attitude it profusely acknowledges. It's like the government to me. All the dark side of it, it's there. So you know what not to be. That's why I like those books. Not because it's some kind of aggrandizing view of the kind of person I am. No. Actually, I enjoy these things because they're showing me the kind of person not to be. They're showing me not to be like Mr. Caulfield. I don't want to be him, And I understand why. He explained everything about how much he devalues everything. Motherfucker, he doesn't want anything to come back. Yet he wants to save people. Yet he wants to save kids. That's a big contradiction, a big hypocrite right there. And it shows it in the kind of person, in the kind of people that he sees, all he does is become them. He doesn't do anything better. Well, that's not somebody I value. In fact, that's the main reason why I can read it sustainably. Because I can look at it and say, oh shit, he truly acts that way because he's seen it and that's all he knows. It's understandable, but I saw revenge and bullying when I was 7 years old. I saw a ton of different stuff while I was growing up like that. Just a lot of bullying, a lot of people getting revenge on people, whether it was kids in the school or outside of school. It was everywhere. And I still didn't become it. You know why? Because my focus and concentration is just too much to deliberate with this shit over the details. It's not about details, it's about what you're doing. If you're doing something right, you know it. If you're doing something wrong, you won't show it. You'll hide it. You'll hide it and discredit it and say, oh, classified information, secrets. We're going to keep it away because of public interest. So the public has interest and you won't give it to the people who have interest. Exactly. And there we go. Wanted to save kids and all the imagination because didn't want to save himself. I think that's an important point too. A lot of times, a lot of these build behaviors of being such good people with the rest of the world actually hides a lot of what you're not doing for yourself. It's true, and it's funny because it actually shows, possibly, in a big way, why our world is the way it is right now. It's nice that you could save the rest of the world, but it doesn't mean much if you can't save yourself. In fact, the rest of the world, this whole world is dying. Whether it's, if we want to bring up climate change and say it's blamed on the people, But the fact is, this world's dying because of other things, more stuff than we want to talk about. Because it's about emotions, feelings, sensitivities, the kind of stuff that's inside of us. That's, we could say all we want that we need to fix the world, but the world can't be fixed unless we are. Unless we take the time to try to fix us by ourselves. Yes, we're isolated, but we're isolated anyway, so we might as well do something about it. For ourselves, And I think that's the one thing that I learned, because it goes back to what, Holden Caulfield did, which was he wanted to save kids and all the imagination that he has, but at the same time he didn't want to save himself. He didn't want to put himself in a place where he could do better in the world, because he couldn't. There's nothing he could do better. All he could do was continually be himself and continually be upset about the same things again and again and again and again, and it keeps on going. It's just never ended. He continually devalued everything and didn't want it to come back, and he wanted to save kids and all the imagination. He can't do both, and honestly that's the whole point. He did it in his imagination. He never did it in real life because he didn't want to save himself, though technically he did do it in real life. It's just that it means very much less if you're not willing to save yourself. So you're never gonna have, like the one thing I learned is that everything means so much to me. You wanna know why? Because I value what it means to me, what I did for myself, and what I have done to help myself grow and be. It's hard to not value something now, and that's fine. I think that's great. But I think it's kind of bad when you see other people not doing it too. And when you consistently see it, you're like, damn, what can I do? Nothing. It's sad that I can't do nothing, but that's the way it goes when people don't value themselves. They don't value anything. And I think within a lot of that, we come to a place where we think we're doing better for the world, but we're not. We're just going along the same lines as everything else. We're just seeing it as we want to see it. Sadly, we don't ever try to look at it deeper than that, and a lot of times that's why many of this stuff doesn't get anywhere. It's because we're continually trying to, devalue something so it won't come back. And I think that's what we've gotten to a point of where, in fact, there are so many people that could get upset about it. And it's true, There are so many people that do get upset about it, but don't do anything about it. And I understand that. But to be fair, the contradictions and hypocritical actions were already there. There's no possible way to escape from it. And the only ways you can escape from it, you're not going to find an escape. Because no one else wants that. That's not an escape, that's reality. So that's the one thing about it. That's a very big difference that most people don't want to look at directly. They want to just say, well, it can be fixed. And they want to use this solution that is so archaic. Not archaic in the way that it's impossible to do. In fact, it's probably the only way possible that people would stand up, which is violence and protest. The French Revolution is a sign of that, because it was all blood. That's all it was. It did show that people are capable of a lot of bad stuff if they're trying to be taken advantage of. And it's nice to see that some people in close to my lifetime at some point did actually stand up for something, and it's hilarious that people kind of mock that. They make fun of it as if it meant nothing, but it actually did the most for a society and civilization than anything could, because it showed that the government should be afraid of the people, not the other way around. And I think in a lot of ways, that's what comes to my next part, which is when somebody does something to another person and the next day gets angry and upset when somebody does it to them. We've gotten to this before, but I think it's important to work on this contradiction, hypocritical attitude. Because I kind of went through this not too long ago with an incident, but it kind of makes fun of everything, because a lot of people like doing bad things to people, but they don't like having those bad things done to them. Well, then they shouldn't do it. You know, it may be karma, but it may not be. But the fact is that they put themselves in a place to hurt somebody, and they get upset and angry when somebody tries to do it to them. It's funny that a lot of what I'm talking about has to do with that. It has to do with the semblance of what we already think, which is the two-sided way. You know, well, if it's done to me, I don't like it, but when I do it to others, oh, I love it. You know, and it's funny that a lot of the issues comes from compulsory cause and effect. We allow cause and effect to make us create our world. So we'll get upset about something that's been done to us. You know, or at least we'll get upset about something that we've done to others too. You know, and that's the thing about it. It's like, well, hold it. You're upset because this person did it to you, but you just did it to somebody else the exact same way yesterday. Yeah, but I want to get away with something. I don't want them to. I think it's hilarious because it shows the kind of person you're dealing with. You're dealing with a huge hypocrite who wants to get away with everything. But we have the same idea up above us, you know, in the government itself, you know. White-collar crimes, you bet they don't get much. And they don't. But truly, we're living in a place where most people would say that, you know, all you need is a patsy. All you need is one person to take the fall. And everything's cool. And I think within that, we try to establish the kind of things we create. We try to establish the kind of persons we are. And we try to make it seem like we know exactly what we're doing, where we're going, how we're going to do it, how we're going to deal with things. But we never actually do it the way we say we would. In fact, we live in that hypocritical, contradictory image so much that we forget about what we truly wanted in the first place. And I think that's what comes down to what I meant by ethical behavior broken. Because our ethical behavior can be broken by what we think of ourselves, or others think of us, or others use us in the way of telling us what to do, letting us choose sides, using mathematics and solutions and problems, or the Merovingian with a cause and effect, you know. Or with giving ourselves choices, we kind of create an ambiguous nature for ourselves. So we could lead from any example. We could do the vanity and corruption because it wouldn't matter. You still have a choice. So the fact is, the only thing it boils down to is that how you think about it first is all that matters. The rest of the way, you just do anything you want. So it's the whole Jesus story again, where you have the biggest problem is not what Jesus did to himself and what he did in his lifetime. The fact that he didn't try to help everybody else is the problem. Like, it's funny that a lot of people look at it as if this character really saved people. He didn't really. All he did was save his own problems that happened. And it's funny that you can live through it, and we can still be treated like shit in this earth. You're not going to change it at all? You know what, did you get scared after you experienced it firsthand? God? And that's why, to me, you can't use religion in that form, because to me, spiritual is there, but the religion is not there. If the religion was there, well, there wouldn't be wars through religions. There wouldn't be hate through religions. There wouldn't be anything through religions. In fact, there couldn't be churches because you wouldn't need to pray. Everything would be good. And I think when you're pulled into a choice or pulled to do something, it's a little different. You know, the value is different. So, to me, I value everything now, and it's going to take time because I could say it's a lie or it's not good or it's a bad reality, but truly I have to recognize it, you know. You wanted that. You know, that's something that you value. That's something that values you. You know. And I think that's the one thing I learned is that getting angry, upset when somebody does it to them, it's funny, you know. They want to do it to other people, but they don't want to experience it themselves. And I think that's what we've become. We've become a huge amount of people that pretty much want to be the bullies, take out the revenge, but do it without even reason. Without any reason we want to do things. You know, without any reason whatsoever. Just do it. Just do it because we can. And that's where my life ends, really. That's why the Death King is here. Because truly I am nothing but a character and persona and personality and heart and soul and mind and whatever, that pretty much I'm not afraid of love, I'm not afraid of death. War is not an option to me. War is not the biggest thing to me. Love is. But it's only the biggest thing if you believe that there is. If you trust and have confidence that there is. If you don't, then there's nothing left. Your self-esteem is gone. Your self-depreciation is in. Take the razor blades up to your skin. That's all you need. Me, on the other hand, I need something else. A big heart, big love, giving out love, and take care. That's all for this week.